I used to think I knew exactly who my husband was. Daniel was quiet, steady, the kind of man who never raised his voice, never made a scene, never asked for much. For 12 years, I mistook his silence for weakness. I mistook his patience for something I could poke at whenever I wanted to feel bigger than I was. And on the night of his company's anniversary dinner, in a private dining room full of his colleagues and his boss, I found out exactly how wrong I had been. The dinner was supposed to be simple. Daniel worked as an operations manager at a logistics company, the kind of steady, unglamorous job that paid our mortgage and put our daughter through dance lessons without ever making headlines. I had grown resentful of that steadiness. My sister's husband had just been promoted to regional director somewhere flashy, and every family gathering turned into a quiet comparison I never said out loud, but carried around like a stone in my chest. So when Daniel's boss, a tall, silver-haired man named Richard, turned to me at the table and asked what I thought of my husband's work, something ugly rose up in me before I could stop it. I laughed, not a warm laugh, the kind that softens a room, but a short, sharp one, the kind that cuts. I said, honestly, I stopped asking him about work years ago. There's nothing to brag about. He shows up, he does the same thing every day, and he comes home and doesn't say a word about it. I used to think I married an ambitious man. Turns out I married a man who's happy being invisible. A few people chuckled uncomfortably. Richard's smile faltered. And Daniel, sitting beside me in his good gray suit, didn't flinch. He just set his fork down very carefully, the way you set something down when you're making sure it doesn't shatter. I felt powerful in that moment. God help me. I felt like I had finally said the thing I'd been swallowing for years. And I felt the room's attention shift toward me, and some broken part of me mistook that attention for vindication. I didn't notice, not really, the way Richard's expression had changed from awkward to something closer to disbelief. I didn't notice because I wasn't looking at Daniel. I was looking around the table, waiting for someone to agree with me. Daniel waited until the table had gone quiet enough that his voice wouldn't need to rise above a whisper. Then he looked at me, not with anger, not with the wounded expression I almost wanted to see, but with something calm and terribly final, and he said 5 words. You never once asked Claire. That was it. 5 words. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't defend himself. He didn't list his accomplishments or correct the picture I just painted of him in front of his boss. He simply told the truth and let it sit there in the middle of the table like something none of us could look away from. Richard cleared his throat and said gently that perhaps I didn't know that Daniel had quietly restructured the entire Western distribution network the year before, cutting costs so significantly that it had kept 40 jobs from being eliminated during a downturn that had gutted 2 of their competitors. He said Daniel had been offered the regional director position himself, twice, and had turned it down both times, citing our daughter's school schedule and wanting to be home for dinner every night. I sat there in my chair feeling the blood drain out of my face because I hadn't known any of it, not one word of it. I had built an entire story about my husband's invisibility, and it turned out the invisibility was mine. I was the one who had stopped looking. Daniel didn't say anything else for the rest of the dinner. He was polite to his colleagues, he thanked Richard for the evening, and he drove us home in a silence that felt heavier than any argument we'd ever had. When we got inside, I tried to apologize, tried to explain that I didn't mean it the way it sounded, that I was just tired, just having a bad night. He listened to all of it standing in the doorway of our bedroom, still in his suit, and when I finished, he said he wasn't angry about the dinner. He said the dinner had just been the first time he'd let himself see clearly what our marriage had actually become. He told me quietly that he'd known for a long time that I looked at him and saw someone smaller than the men around us. He said he used to think that if he just kept showing up, kept being steady, kept not asking for credit, I would eventually notice the person underneath the routine. He said tonight he finally understood that I wasn't going to notice, because I had already decided who he was, and nothing he did was going to change my mind. Then he asked me to sleep in the guest room, not out of cruelty, he said, but because he needed one night to think without my voice in the room. That one night turned into 6 months of separation, and eventually into a divorce neither of us fought very hard against. Looking back, I don't think the marriage ended because of what I said at that dinner table. I think it ended because of everything I hadn't said for years before it. All the questions I never asked, all the small ways I let my own bitterness rewrite who my husband was until I couldn't see him anymore. Only the story I told myself about him. Daniel didn't destroy our marriage with those 5 words. He just finally stopped pretending it wasn't already broken. And I have spent every day since wondering how many other people I love I've stopped truly seeing, simply because I was too busy comparing them to someone else.